Whew. All right. Now that the pregame ritual has been completed, we will be talking about what is new on Football Manager 2020. What we're doing for this video is comparing what's new in Football Manager 2020 to, well, Football Manager 2019. But I realize a lot of you out there might be like I was before I started making stuff about the game, where I bought it every couple of years. So if you are trying to decide whether this is the time to upgrade and from, FM 2018 or 2017 or Championship Manager, then you can keep your eye out for other little changes that you might not have noticed, like the dynamics section, or maybe I'll just accidentally tell you a lot of these different changes that have happened over the last couple of years that might make the game worth buying again to you. I realize this video might be used for that purpose too, so that's just keep your eyes peeled. I might not touch on everything over the last couple of years. This is just, what's new this year. So what's actually new? I gotta get to my, Ta-da! All right, cool. Now that I've shrunk myself, we get a good look at where you are when you come into Football Manager 2020. This isn't necessarily going to be like the new features video I did during the beta. This is going to be the differences in the feel of the game from 19 to 2020. Put over 1,000 hours in 19. I will put over 1,000 hours in 20. It's just kind of what I do. We'll just run through here and break down all the different sections now that I've been able to put a good bit of time in the post-beta version of the game. And it is pronounced beta because that's the way I was raised saying it, and I'm not the only one. And if you say beta, that's fine. But if you comment and you go like, you're saying beta wrong, I'm not. And neither are you. It's just, it's a word. Move on. One of the first things you're probably going to notice is something that will bring back a lot of PTSD for a lot of you from your schooling experience. You get letter grades from the board. Now, it's a fun little feature. It's a lot better than the bar, in my opinion, because everybody can immediately recognize, how well are you doing with these letter grades. All you got to do is click on Head Coach Performance from your home screen, and you're going to be able to see the breakdown of your letter grades and all the different things you're performing in. So we'll be using my Twitch save, by the way, if you're wondering why I just jumped into May 22nd with Bate Borisov. Using my Twitch save, good stuff. The link's right there if you want to come hang out. I'm doing what I call the Soviet Steamroller, randomly selected team from one of the former Soviet countries, and we're just going to try and win in Europe as much as possible. And it's started pretty well. Worst things to see, that's in matches, so it could be better there. But it does a nice job of breaking things down. You can get even more specific if you want to. And this is probably one of the better improvements they've made specifically to FM20, is just overhauling your relationship with the board. You have a lot more information accessible to you. And you also have the ability, as has been incredibly hyped, to project years out. I don't think it's something that's used a whole lot unless you're a club that is growing predictably. I've found that when you're setting up your 5-year plan that you actually end up not using the last couple of years, with the exception of like win the cup again or win the league again if you are one of the huge clubs. Like Bate Borisov is the biggest club in Belarus, which I kind of got lucky with our random number selector that we used for the save. If you ever want to see that 5-year plan, by the way, it's in the Club Vision tab, which I went to from home. You get a performance Club Vision, and see how the 5-year plan is just like continue winning the league. I think the 5-year plan was probably overhyped, and just so you know, this is what pops up when you're negotiating with a new club to join. They'll say, this is what we want to do over the next 5 years, and then by the time you get 2 years away, it's basically inconsequential. It's just, unless of course they sneak something in here like win the Prem, that's not normally going to happen to you. Another tidbit that has been included that you just won't see in any other Football Manager is they have a club culture, a way that the club has played for a long time. This has been a complaint about Football Manager for a while. Club culture just basically is another board, not requirement, like at Bate Borisov, it's desired that you play counter-attacking ball, but you really don't have to. You'd imagine, and I haven't looked at Barcelona yet, you'd imagine if you're at Barcelona that it's a requirement to play good possession ball. So they'll have different levels of intensity or importance. Got the word. But it's in the game now. It was never in the game before. Also, important designation, I'm using the basic skins. So this is what the game will look like before you trick it out with the skins. If you want to go skin shopping and use that to decide whether you're going to get the new game, you probably already know how to do that if that's a question. Other large features that you run into, whether you want to or not, it's this thing called the Development Center. Probably the most hyped new feature, and if you were tracking the release of the game outside of watching this video, you've most likely heard of it. I do think it was a little blown out of proportion, as it is not going to provide you the opportunity to cultivate youngsters in a new way. It will, however, provide you the opportunity to see information that you would have had to work a lot harder to get, which for someone with a lazy disposition like me does mean the Development Center changes the game, but it's not adding new information to the game. It is presenting it to you in a centralized location that is mimicking a more real managerial feel. On the bottom, you get blurbs from your staff, you get progression development lines. So, Artem Skurdyuk he's struggling to develop, and he can be better than Filipovic, which means I should be interested because Filipovic is pretty good. Or if you want all the guys like Skurdyuk, there's the needs attention section. There's also a first team candidates section. Ideally, in this section, I've only been at this club for a couple months, and that's why there's nobody in it. Ideally, it's full of people that are immediate candidates to be selected for the first team. It's actually pretty straightforward. I love the information that you're given here. I love the information when you tab over to loans that you get. You have the opportunity to recall people from loans. You see when they're eligible to be recalled from loan. You see a bunch of information about their happiness with the loan that you would have had to go very deep into the morale, well, not very deep into the morale page of the player themselves to figure that information out before. It is now all present to you. This is going to make the gaming experience faster and easier. It even has a little loan suggestion section. Probably need to make it a lot bigger for me because I got a lot of dudes. They also just kind of stash your reserve team in here. I don't really like that. I pulled my U19s team out, and I haven't really figured out how to pull the reserve team out yet. But they get a little blurb from whichever staff member you've selected to put as your staff. So you get little write-ups and reports and graphs and places that present the information you would have had to hunt for and keep track of before. So this is the biggest quality of life improvement, and it's the reason why I'm considering the progression from FM19 to FM 2020 is basically a progression in quality of life improvements. It's just they made the game more accessible and easier to play. Part of that's the overwhelming tutorial system. They hit you with a tutorial on everything. If it's your first time playing the game, you're gonna learn. Or else. Made some minor tweaks to training, and everybody is always interested in training. That's where your players develop. One of the ones for me is if you go into training and you go all the way over to rest, you actually have the opportunity to set different amounts of rest for different amounts of conditions. So you can say if you're 60 to 69% condition, you don't play, you don't train. You play, and you can half the intensity. I think that's the only options, yeah. And that's good, and you can drop intensity on specific players or raise it on specific players or raise it on multiple players at a time if you click over here. Just a useful little panel. Again, saving you time, especially when you're dealing with bloated squads. There are a couple of new training moves, like defending from the front and playing out of the back. I think those are the only two new training sessions. As for the staff, your relationship with your staff was at the forefront of the changes that SI was trying to make to Football Manager this year. There are two new staff roles. One is the technical director, which fits right into that mold. Technical director is the person that basically monitors the effectiveness of your staff, kind of like the general manager monitors the effectiveness of your squad. If the technical director sees a good coach to go grab, you basically just kind of put him in charge of running your staff if you don't like doing that, which I'm discovering the more and more I stream on Twitch. Not everybody sets every member of their staff. Maybe I'm just a maniac. Should be one of multiple signs. There's also somebody called a loan manager. We're not lucky enough to have that person at Bate Borisov. A loan manager is somebody that you have to keep corralled, but they can't actually sort out loan moves for people that are designated to be sorted out on loan moves. Now, you can do this a couple of different ways. One is through staff responsibility, where the loan manager was going to basically loan out anyone that they see fit, which means you really need to trust your loan manager, or else that young 18-year-old you're thinking about working into cup matches could just vanish, and all of a sudden they're in Portugal and you have no idea what happened. Or you can specifically designate a player to be loaned out by the loan manager, kind of like you can designate a player to be sold by the general manager. Just say, hey, take care of this, and they'll take care of it for you. Development Center loan section, very handy for that. good staff role. I mentioned that you could tweak it in the staff responsibilities, or the staff responsibilities page. You get a staff responsibilities here. It looks a little overwhelming. So here's how I would recommend doing it. A lot of flag coming the way of Football Manager. I like the staff responsibilities page. You cannot, that's fine. The reason I like it is it breaks it down into sections, and those sections you can actually click through, and it looks much more user-friendly than it does on the other screen. And you actually have little tabs you can click through, like staff responsibilities for contract negotiations and renewals and that sort of thing. Very specific. Well, that's staff, actually. Then transfers and contracts. And there's actually a loans section right here, outgoing development loans, and I can delegate that to a loan manager if I had one. I think what happened is they really liked that UI. They couldn't quite fit it in here, so they tried to take a lot of the color out of it. And the color coding really helps. And I think it'd be nice if they could include it on one page instead of having 2 pages with head coach and staff. But still, they've included more options in your staff responsibilities. I think writ large, it's a positive. And I think that once you become familiar with the way that it goes back and forth, you click this drop down arrow, delegate, and then pick the member of the staff that you want to delegate it to, that life just becomes easier. I think it's a good staff responsibilities overhaul. You need more responsibilities because your staff is feeding you more information per the quality of life stuff. And that more information is just great. Worth the price to pay for a little weirdness. There's also something called a pre-match tactical briefing, which I'm going to get ahead to the next match here in the save real quick. I'm not going to play it or anything, but I'm going to get up to the pre-match tactical briefing just to show you what it looks like. All right, here we go. I just played a match 2 days ago, so it's pretty persnickety with the match fitness, and it's trying to switch out a lot of different players, and that's fine. It's putting almost my starting defense back in, which is nice. And it also, you never end up with a messed up squad. You always end up exactly who you want in there. You don't accidentally leave the other goalkeeper in after a cup or something. It really deletes all that kind of those kinds of mistakes, and it gives you a reason. You don't really spend the time and read the reason because they're pretty canned, but if you're really curious as to why a change keeps happening, you actually do have a reason right here why I pick my assistant coach. You can pick anybody on your staff, why they're telling me that these people should be starting. You just want to make that the person with the best judging player ability, by the way. Onto the tactical side of things, where some people, not actually me necessarily, can spend a lot of their time. The interface is going to feel largely the same. There is a new role for attacking left midfielders and attacking right midfielders called the inverted winger. Think Eden Hazard, that's who is, I think, the best inverted winger in the world. And past all that, there's the match engine, which should I show you the match engine? I don't know. I didn't put it on the script, but I feel like I should show you the match engine. I'll include a muted clip of my stream then. That works. So the match engine, they've made some improvements. They rewrote the marking code on the back line. They rewrote the player anatomy so that you have real proportional. They basically gave them a physiology where they kind of just designed something that looked like a human being out of Play-Doh before. They put the bones in, put the gravity in, that sort of thing, which is nice. It feels different. The graphics are better. They did a good job with the field and the lighting just to make it feel a little more realistic and a little less plastic. I don't know past the physiology of the players, which I know is probably a big step in development, but visually it doesn't make much of a difference. I know that probably was a lot of effort, so I understand them not going through too much else. The long shots are still effective. The game feels pretty authentic. There are not as many instances of your players giving the ball away as there used to be, especially in the beta. That was a huge issue with the way they redone the match engine, but there's a lot of effort that went into the match engine, just so you know, and it does look better, and it does feel better, and 1v1s are still, the percentage still feels way too low, but there could just be some bias in there. You're always assuming your 1v1 is going to go in, and theirs isn't, right? It's good, it's fluid. Touchline talks still seem to be broken. A few are effective, a few are not effective. I've been testing them out. I'm not through testing them out, so I can't be sure about that. But the same few seem to work. Get creative, praise if you're doing well, demand more, and that's basically it. Your halftime talk, your pre-match talk are going to be basically the same. The press conferences are basically the same, so you can go ahead and put that in staff responsibilities. that somebody else handles. Save you a whole lot of time. There's one more feature that I think is worth showing outside the match engine that I did plan on showing is in contract negotiation, and this is perfect. You actually have the opportunity to plan ahead. And they have the opportunity to screw you, as players and agents always do, because they can say, well, 2 years from now, I'm going to be a squad player. Next year, I'm going to be a fringe player. And if you notice, some of these might be new roles. Breakthrough prospect. Start as a breakthrough prospect, but 2 years from now, I'm going to be a squad player. How exciting. Yeah, you can understand how you can end up screwing yourself with that. You end up signing somebody else in that place. This person doesn't quite develop the way you thought they would. All of a sudden, they're not a squad player and they want to leave, and you lose some good depth or something like that. But it is a good way to negotiate with and keep talented young players and say, hey, look, this guy's getting old. You stick around, you're going to be an important first team player for us, which is actually a role up there. We don't want to give him that now. We will, however, stick to this. Go ahead and remove squad player. Yeah, that's good. And you go straight through to negotiating the contract. You don't have to wait 1 minute like you did last year. And at this point, it's going to look basically the same. I like the UI and the fact that, they tell you the pros and cons, right? Basically, the full report is right over here. You've got your budgets, which you don't even have to leave the negotiation to adjust. So that nervous moment where you're worried you might have accidentally canceled the negotiation to go adjust your budget, you don't have to dodge that. You can adjust in the bottom left corner. And these are all things you could do, but it's now more accessible. This is a great example of the quality of life improvements that were made for Football Manager 2020, really. And I do want to sign this guy. This isn't just for show. He's like the talented young Belarusian kid. So that was way too easy. Then at the bottom of my notes in the extras where I was like, this won't make the difference on anybody wanting to get the game. But now I'm thinking, why should I be the judge of that sort of thing? You have the code of conduct. If you go to dynamics and code of conduct, it comes up. You actually don't have to find it. It will come to you in your inbox at some point. Pretty early on when you start with a new team, you essentially lay out how much the fine is for any particular suspension, so you avoid the perpetual situation of angering somebody when you try and fine them for getting sent off for karate kicking someone. And it does work. It works very well. I've used it 5 times, I think, this year. Not for bunch of karate kickings, but we actually just had one on the stream this morning, and I did want to fine him for a week, I think. Yeah. It was half week. 1 week for the second offense. I think that's it. Those are all the major things that are new on Football Manager 2020 that I've stumbled across so far. There's a big glaring one that you're like, how did he not talk about this? Because I know they did some minor tweaks to the scouting, but I just don't think I've run into them yet. Or something that I just assumed was already in FM19 and I forgot while I was putting this list together. Please throw that down in the comments. Also, if you're still struggling to decide whether to get FM 2020, I'm happy to talk about that in my Discord, which is linked down below, or in the comments wherever you feel most comfortable, maybe even Twitter. It's also linked down below. I try and make life easy for you. If you're wondering how I feel about it, really doesn't matter. I have the same opinion worth as anybody who's watching this, you, but I think the game is probably worth buying. I think it makes it a lot easier to play, and the style that I like to play really utilizes something like the Development Center, which is why I'm looking forward to getting it cranking with this Soviet steamroller up in here. All right. I'll see y'all soon now. Y'all come back now. Y'all think that's made up? That's really how my grandma talks.